In my last video, I gave you guys what my Blackmagic Cinema rig currently is, and in this video, I want to give you a step-by-step guide on how to build that rig out. So if you're somebody who is looking to see each individual part on how I made it, this is going to be the video for you. I'm going to list every single thing in the description below that I can, and I'm going to walk you through my thought process and how everything functionally works together. So this is going to be a longer video, but it's going to be really, really cool to build this thing from scratch. What's going on, guys? Today we are deep diving into my Pyxis rig build, and the core foundation of it all is built in this Tilta Pyxis Pro cage. Right now I've gone ahead and attached the cage because that's kind of boring. But if you want to see the full breakdown of this, it's on my Patreon where I just sit for 35-40 minutes and build this thing out flat. But this video, I went ahead and attached the cage. I went ahead and left on the Mondo ties to where I do my cable management. There are 4 of them. Very, very essential, I believe, for a rig like this. There isn't a lot of cables, but overall, you know, I want this thing to be aesthetically perfect in my eyes. And so that's where we're going to start. The first thing I do when I'm building out a rig like this is I kind of go ahead and get either the cage on, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do the mount. The mount I'm using is a Trader PL to L mount. It's just a standard dummy mount. If you really want to take this thing to the next level, adding a Mofage Poco adapter, which has built-in ND filters into the mount, is really cool, but I'm cheap, so I really like the dummy mount, and I'm going to use a matte box on top of that. So let's go ahead and get the mount installed. I really do enjoy PL. It's so simple. And a couple of you guys asked me which Pyxis I would recommend, EF mount, the L mount, or the PL mount. I like the L mount because it has the versatility of having an L mount while being adaptable to anything else. Lens of choice always is the Blazar anamorphic lenses. And of course, I have any other cine lens, any other PL lens works as well, but I really do enjoy the Blazar lenses. Paired with the open gate sensor creates a really nice look. A lot of you guys have been asking me to take a look and actually film with these. I've had these for almost a year now and I've loved them. So I'll finally do a review on these things coming up soon. But okay, the camera is starting to kind of look like a camera. Let's go ahead and throw on the actual battery plate adapter. Super simple with this cage. I really like that I'm able to convert the BPU battery that would normally sit back here into V-mount without having to have a rail system. That was something that was really important to me and keeps the build like kind of smaller, but it's still a pretty large build as you've seen before. But really easy. This thing just locks in, it screws in with a thumb screw, and now I can add V-mount, and we have already a really nice looking beginning of a production rig. If you are interested in the camera rig so far and you want to see more videos like this, here's a fun fact. Over 75% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So it would really make my day and help me grow the channel if you were to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and attach the base plate. This is part of the actual Tilta cage package. All right, here's where it kind of differs from me. Normally, you can add your follow focus wheel here to the bottom base plates, but I am going to forego that, and I'm going to add a top rail system. This particular top rail system is the actual mount that I use for the EVF. Now, what I've done here is I've taken the Blackmagic's EVF rail system that would normally attach to the Blackmagic top handle. I don't have the top handle currently, so I have taken a 15mm rod adapter, if you guys can kind of see that. I've taken a 15mm rod adapter and I've kind of made it to where I can mount this thing to the top of a cage and then adapt it to the 19mm rod that holds the Pyxis. It's a little jank, but it is very, very, very nice once it all comes together. Okay, now that I got the actual top railing system there, we can ignore that for a little bit. And I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and throw on the Tilta Nano Nucleus follow focus motor. This is how I get my electronic manual focus with the side handle. And thankfully, this thing kind of perfectly just sits on these Blazar lenses. I need to test it with other lenses. And the reason I have it here is because the cable that I use with this follow focus motor is a very, very short cable. I mean, that way it can just be as clean as possible and as minimal as possible. But what I want to do now, I tell you what, I want to mount the actual monitor to the top of the Pyxis using just an old small rig shoe that I had laying around. The big point is to be able to mount it to where there's enough room for the cables to route behind the monitor. That was a really big thing for me. Awesome. This is another one screw kind of mounting situation. Unfortunately, it just doesn't have a lot of compatibility with the small rig parts that I've noticed, but as you can see, it's kind of dead center and it sits a little far away from the actual viewfinder mount. And what I'm gonna do now is we'll go ahead and mount the monitor. The monitor I like to use is the Viltrox 6-inch. So going forward, we're gonna take, let's say, the battery. We're using the Caleb Pike 212 huge V-mount battery. Let's take the actual EVF system and go ahead and route it before it gets a little hectic with the cables. I like that this thing just slots in with no problem. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this cable. This cable plugs right here in the front. I run it behind the follow focus motor, behind everything. And it's a locking USB-C. What I like to do is I like to take the excess cable that runs from this and put it through this Mondo tie. And I'll do that twice. That way, if I ever want to extend my EVF up towards my eye, I can do that because I have the extra leeway with the cable to do so. After that, I would like to take my electronic focus motor, or my electric focus control, I should say, which is in this handle. This handle fits really nicely in this, if I'm not mistaken, it's area rosette. This thing is really, really nice because you can adjust the angle on the fly. You don't really have to worry about it too much. And as you see, she is coming together very, very nicely. What I do at this point is I take the super tiny cable and I plug it up. Okay, small note, when working with this electronic focus motor, if you have it mounted the exact same way that I do, you actually need to mount this EVF in the leftmost screw, just so that the actual cable that I use for this thing can fit ever so perfectly above this thumb screw. It's a really small, really niche thing, but it's how I get everything to fit so perfectly. That way it's not in the way, I should say. But now that that's there, what we can do is we can go ahead and mount the second side handle, which is just, NATO railed on. Doesn't really need much. This one is crazy optional if you need it to be. So moving right along, there's a couple things you can do at this point. Let's talk about power. The power solution I have for this particular monitor is two different options. One, just the battery. That works, especially when you're working with SDI monitors. I'm not trying to create a power loop to blow out my SDI port, so I went with just the battery. You can, however, do these Sony batteries to D-tap adapters and plug them in, but I'm gonna be using my camera via the same V-mount battery, and because I'm so scared of power surges, I'm just gonna use the standard battery. However, I do use this adapter to plug into the side handle because it's just a Sony MPF, and I plug this into here, and now the excess cabling gets ran. That way it's kind of neatly running along, which is why I really like these mono ties. Like, they help out a lot, and it just lets me adjust when I need to. So I tell you what, speaking of adjusting when I need to, let's clean this up a little bit. There we go. That is perfectly done. Lastly, let's get into the matte box system. There are two good options in my opinion. This is the Condor Blue's new matte box. Basically, this thing has it all. The only thing it doesn't have is it's not a variable ND matte box, which is why I say you can get variable NDs put into the actual mount, or you use a different type of filter. If you want to be able to control every bit of light that touches your sensor, I really do like these, but I have to buy additional stops of ND. Right now, I believe this is just 4 stops of ND, which is perfect for daylight, but it's not so perfect for indoor or anything else I may be filming. But I really like this matte box. It tension clamps right on. And I mean, it's super, super nice. And lastly, SDI. So the protocol for SDI, if you're unfamiliar, is SDI should be the last thing that you put in. It should be the first thing that you take out, because what you want to do is you want to avoid a power surge, which will burn out your SDI port. That is bad. I do not want that. And the way I organize my SDI stuff is I'll go ahead and plug the SDI into my monitor system and honestly kind of just forget about it. And I run all the SDI cabling through these other two Mondo ties that are up here on top. That way, everything is locked in place. I don't have to worry about like this cable hitting this or, you know, X, Y, and Z, but it does take a little bit to get them in there. All right, the great thing is once it's in there, my SDI cable just always sits right here next to my SDI port. That way, when I plug the camera up, when I turn the power on, I can just plug the SDI up and not have to worry about anything. I'm getting power to my side handle and my focus motor via this V-mount battery. And once again, if you want to plug the monitor up via DTAP, you can power this entire system off of this one battery. And that's what I really wanted to emphasize and to do. That was one of my big goals for creating a system like this. It was not having to worry about charging a ton of things. This is my primary camera. This is something that's just going to work no matter when or where I use it. This is how it works. Now, optional things. These are things that I'm just gonna throw out there. One is the Blackmagic extension arm. It comes with the EVF. This is how I use the EVF when the camera is a lot lower. That's why I have the extra bit of cable. That way I can just swap this EVF out for the extension arm, put the EVF up here, and you have a nice long EVF. Secondly, something that I've been using a lot is the SAC. I mentioned this in the last video. This is the SAC Cine saddle. Really like this thing because the camera just sits in it. And now you can take the weight off of your back and, you know, use a kind of like a shoulder strap, but it's a little bit more advanced. If you don't know what a Cine saddle is, dude, look into it. Just save your back, seriously. And the last thing is how I transport this rig. I transport it via this. This is a tool bag that Justin Porter recommended to me, to where you just go to Home Depot, buy this bag. It's like $110, $120. I don't have to break this rig down. In fact, what I'll do is, this is how much I have to break the rig down. I have to take the EVF and I have to drop it to where it doesn't get damaged because it's expensive. And I have to take the side handle off. Boom. And usually my battery is charging. So the battery's off, and that's it. That's unfortunate, but that's it. That's all I have to break it down, and so yeah, my entire cinema rig build fits into that case, and I really, really like that. So if you are curious about my thought process in its entirety, I'll leave a Patreon link below. I pretty much went through what it was like for me to think through this rig, but overall, I really enjoy the way it operates. And once again, thank you so much for watching. If you are currently watching and you're still watching, 75%, actually more than 75% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed. So I would really enjoy it if you subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel, but that's it. If you want to see me build a new rig, I'm working on a couple more things when it comes to the Pyxis, and I'm working on a couple more things when it comes to a bunch of cameras in general. So I hope to help you out as best I can. If you have any questions, leave them down below. But with that all being said, that's all I have for today, guys. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you loved it, consider subscribing. I'm bringing you more content just like this every week. So you guys stay safe, you're loved, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.